So according to Islam Makhachev's manager, the UFC apparently has plans for Islam Makhachev that has nothing to do with Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, or Ilia Topuria. Islam also said that he doesn't want to fight Bilal Muhammad. He also expressed that he doesn't want to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov either. As he has trained with both of these guys, he knows them, Bilal's a good friend of his, and especially if Bilal Muhammad defeats Shavkat Rakhmonov, what would the UFC's plan be for Islam for his next fight? Because Islam Makhachev has expressed his dreams of becoming a double champ, winning 2 belts in different weight classes, but he has that hurdle in front of his dream of fighting one of his friends. But Islam said that the second belt doesn't have to be only 1 weight class above. It could be 2. Islam said that he wants to do the impossible and win his second belt 2 weight classes above in the middleweight division, and I think the UFC sees a huge opportunity here for Islam fighting the middleweight champion. I don't know if they're gonna do it. It's a crazy move for the UFC. They've never done it before, but money talks, and we know the UFC wants to make money from these fights. Dana White said that Khamzat Chimaev is the next challenger for the middleweight title regardless if Dricus or Strickland are the champion. The UFC is most likely hoping Khamzat wins the belt so they can make bigger money fights, right? Khamzat's a big star, he has a huge following, he's one of the biggest names in the sport. Of course they would want him to be champion, right? They want the biggest stars to be their champion so they can stack all these pay-per-views and make a lot more money off of them. Because without the big superstars, they have to put more quality fights. With bigger superstars, they don't need to do that. I think the UFC sees that there's an opportunity with a fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Islam Makhachev, as that would be such a financial success, especially if they can have a collaboration with Turki Al-Sheikh, opening more opportunities, right? I guarantee if they talk about Khamzat versus Islam, Turki Al-Sheikh is also going to want to be involved, just like he was for the Riyadh season card. If they can have Khamzat versus Islam, he 100% would want to be on board with it and make it even bigger. I think this is a fight that the UFC might do in the future, or at least think about regarding its potential, right? Maybe they don't do it for their next fight, maybe they do it in the future. If Khamzat could get more title defenses, let's say he beats all the contenders, Islam has already beaten all the contenders. There's really no one there that he hasn't fought yet. Because not only Islam, but his coach, manager, and Bilal have all expressed interest in Islam going up to the middleweight division and fighting for that belt instead. They all believe he can beat them. Whoever the champion is, they believe Islam is the best fighter in the world. And this is a kind of fight where skill versus size is at the highest level. The most skilled fighter in the world, the pound for pound #1, high fight IQ, technical, good striking, good grappling, good wrestling, everything, extremely well-rounded at the highest level of the sport. Can he win the belt unlike anyone's ever done before, 2 weight classes above? And it's not an easy opponent, no matter who it is. Khamzat, Dricus, Strickland, these are all tough fights. They'll be like, what, 30 pounds heavier? It's very similar to like when Lyoto Machida fought BJ Penn way back. They're about 30 pounds apart, but Lyoto didn't cut weight. They had an open weight fight, and the fight was somewhat competitive. Interesting enough. Maybe Islam can compete with the middleweights, but I don't think so. I think the size difference will be too much for Islam Makhachev. When Islam's manager was talking about that the UFC has plans for Islam's next fight and it has nothing to do with lightweight, right? Because if you exclude Arman, Oliveira, and Ilia, of course, there's no one else there at lightweight for him to fight, so it would have to be welterweight or middleweight. But Islam says that he doesn't want to fight Bilal or Shavkat. He did say in the post-fight press conference that he would fight for the middleweight title. Bro, they might do Islam going to middleweight and fighting whoever the middleweight champion is. But again, Dana did say that Khamzat is going to get the title shot first. As a business, you could definitely see how they would want to fight like this. This would be the biggest fight in the UFC. The only thing that could arguably be bigger than that is maybe Tom Aspinall versus John Jones, and that's it. And backed by Turki Al-Sheikh, who helps with the promotion of the fight, makes it feel much bigger too, with the arena and the entrances and the trailers and all that stuff. Like, bro, the promotion for that fight would be absolutely insane. Man, that'd be so exciting. To see a fighter like Islam Makhachev, who is right now the best in the sport, to chase a level of greatness that no one's ever done before. That is super exciting, man. I would love to see him actually achieve something like that. I love for any fighter who is in that position where it makes sense, right? He has 4 title defenses. He's the most accomplished lightweight in history. He's arguably the greatest lightweight of all time. It makes sense for him to make a big move for greatness here out of any other champion. But that's the thing too. So there's a part of it that's exciting, but we do hear a lot about champions moving weight classes and all that stuff, and it gets tiresome. As a fan, I also want to see these champions just keep defending their belts. The thing about Islam that's different though is he's done that. He defended his belt more than anyone ever in his weight class. More than Khabib, more than Benson Henderson, more than BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, name him. He beat all of them in title defenses. And it's not only the merit, it's not only about the title defenses too. Islam did the UFC a favor. And we know how much the UFC would give benefits or opportunities to fighters who help them out too. He stayed on the card for UFC 311 and fought Renato Moicano on short notice. So much so that Dana himself is now rethinking who the pound for pound #1 fighter is. He said actually it might be Islam Makhachev. The UFC loves it when fighters do that for them, right? And if Islam comes up to them and says, I want to achieve something that no fighter has ever done before. I want to move up 2 weight classes and fight for the middleweight title. After he just saved the event, 4 title defenses, the greatest lightweight of all time, arguably, most accomplished lightweight of all time, the pound for pound #1, it'd be very hard for them to say no, especially that they could make so much money off of that fight as well. He gave a chance to Alexander Volkanovski twice to fight for his belt. He stayed in for 2 different cards where his opponent pulled out. How could the UFC say no to him if that's what he wants? He stayed in there for 2 cards and fought a short notice opponent. All these pieces seem to be coming on the board and aligning for this massive fight. Now, it could be that Islam just goes up to welterweight and fights either Belal or Shavkat, which would be insane as well. But it looks like whoever Islam is fighting next, it's going to be for a second belt. That's what it seems like according to his manager. Insane, man. Now, Dricus du Plessis has the opportunity to throw a wrench into all those plans and get himself to fight with Islam Makhachev, which he has welcomed before. He said he'd be willing to fight Islam, doesn't matter to him. He'd be too big for Islam, which I agree with him. As good as Islam is, I do think the middleweights are just too big, especially the elite of that weight class, like Dricus, Khamzat, Strickland. So even though I think Islam is the better fighter out of all of them, whether he fights Khamzat, Dricus, or Strickland, he is the better fighter. He is more technical. He is more skilled. The size difference is way too much. But they say in the training room that Islam handles guys of that size, right? He beats middleweights in the gym. Javier Mendez has said it as well. He said he knows that Islam has the skills because he has gone up against middleweights in the gym before and done very well against them. Even if he has a good performance and he loses, that's still a win for him in some kind of way, right? He's not supposed to beat these guys. Not only should he lose to these middleweights, but they should dominate him. Like, it should not even be close. But what I will say is, if there is any fighter who can do it, it is the best fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. But the thing is, the middleweight champ has to train for him. They cannot underestimate Islam. They have to train for him as if he's an actual challenger for their belt. Now, again, I don't know if this is going to be a fight they do at all, but it has been brought up by Islam, his coaches, his manager, Belal, and what if Islam does move up to middleweight? How would he do against the champion? But if that's not the next move they want to do, if they want Islam to fight for the welterweight title, it looks like he won't fight Belal because both Islam and Belal said they don't want to fight each other. Shavkat's the opposite. He said he would fight Islam. It's just that Islam said he wouldn't like to fight Shavkat. So it would be up to Shavkat winning the belt. If he could beat Belal Muhammad, then the next fight for Islam might be at welterweight instead of middleweight. I think he beats Shavkat. I think he beats Belal, but I think he would lose to the middleweight champion. So it looks like the next fight for Islam Makhachev is for the second belt. It seems like the UFC doesn't want Arman to get another title shot after just pulling out. You can have a fight between him and Charles Oliveira, which would be great. Oliveira just talked about him fighting Max Holloway for the BMF title. That would be amazing as well, right? The rematch, because the first fight wasn't even a fight, as Oliveira got injured right at the beginning of it. And if they do Oliveira versus Holloway 2, maybe they could do Arman Tsarukyan versus the winner of Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker, or you could fight like Rafael Fiziev or something like that. There's some good fights they can make in the lightweight division as Islam Makhachev is fighting for his second belt. So I don't know, man. I think this is a fight that the UFC would like to do. I don't know if he needs to win the welterweight belt first, or they'll do Islam a favor and allow him to go up to the middleweight division if that's what he wants to do by not fighting Belal Muhammad.